We're going to get started in about 2 minutes. If you all have a chair, you need extra chairs. There. Charlie's supposed to run the slideshow. Oh, thank you, Charles. Thank you. Thank you. I can't hear you. Testing. Testing. Can you hear? Now that you all have a chair and you've been able to read the slides.
Test.
I can use this one. We can't start till Charles Menino is in place with a clicker that does the slides, right? I can't do the clicker. I can only do this. Take your pick, huh? Okay, great. Everyone's, oh my gosh, Peggy. I thought you were the Statue of Liberty in an Italian apron. Okay. We can proceed without the slides, right? Thank you. I'm going to call the meeting to order at 1. As soon as, do we need the slide? Have you got the pledge? Okay. Okay. Everybody's so busy, all these workers that make this meeting happen. It's unbelievable what they have to do. Don't ask me how they do it. Look at that. You don't have to leave your home to help WVGS. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. I think all of us need to stand so we can do the pledge. It's okay. There it is. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. If you're a member, if you're a new member or a guest, could you remain standing? Usually every month we love to see our new members and guests, and we need to ask them how they heard about us.
Yes.
Thank you. It's working. I met two ladies earlier today that are new members, but let's introduce you and tell us how you heard about WVGS.
I heard about it 10 minutes ago when I had a flat outside. I'm kidding. I've been coming for several years.
Well, then, you've been coming for several years, but you're a new member now? Vets can stand. Thank you so much. You get to stand one more time later. Thank you. And these lovely ladies, can you say your name and what you heard, why you are here?
My name's Bill Silvestro, and Marilyn Vollmer told me what an amazing place this was, and here I am.
Cynthia Winston, neighbor of Marilyn's, so I'm happy to be here.
Two new members, Marilyn Vollmer. Raise your hand if you remember Marilyn Vollmer. She used to be the editor for our Desert Tracker. For coming, Marilyn. Thank you. Okay, I like to come over and find out. Okay, say your name and what brought you here.
Hi, I'm Larry Euchre, and I recently moved to the Phoenix area from western Colorado, where I was an active member of the Mesa County Genealogy Society. So I moved here and looked you up online.
Good, thanks. So welcome.
Bob Russell from Sun City West. I just heard for it by word of mouth.
Thank you so much. Okay, I'm going to get the two folks back here. And, okay, your name and what brought you here?
My name's Lisa, and this is my friend Elaine, and we're here because of Janet Buchanan. We just completed a master's course in forensic genetic genealogy, and Janet suggested we come here because you guys are so awesome. So we are here to hopefully become new members.
Great. Yeah. We just had Bonnie Bossart just did a class in forensic genealogy for the library, so you need to team up with Bonnie.
I know, they're sewing exciting things.
Yes, and tell me again.
I'm Elaine, and I'm with Lisa.
So you're just going to spy on us for a while. Okay, great. I'm so happy that we have a full house. We are going to introduce some veterans in a little while, and this woman here is going to be one of the helpmates.
I'm Debbie Schneider. I know most of the people at this table because I'm also a member of DAR and a Air Force veteran.
Thanks for coming all. All right. We need to approve the minutes that were posted on the bulletin board. Apparently they also are going on the webpage now, the minutes. So I need a motion to approve the minutes from our last general meeting. Charlie is making a motion to approve the minutes. Do I have a second? Peggy? Oh, Marilyn's going to second that. Okay, all those in favor say aye. Thank you. All those opposed? Okay. The Treasurer's report, I always say this the wrong way, but the Treasurer's report is presented at the board meeting. It is then posted for audit. So you can get to the Treasurer's report. You can read it. It's going to be posted always online as well. So if you're ever curious about finances, it's pretty easy to find. On the agenda, and I never remember to look up here and follow along, but the next thing on the agenda that I have is to thank again the nominating committee. Pat Tamaro, Diana Wittenberg, and Sally Pavia worked very hard starting last end of March for a slate of officers, and you all voted online. And the thing that I thought was quite interesting to think about, mull over, 600 plus members were notified online that they could vote, and 173 of you did. So I am going to read the slate of officers for the 2024 year. These officers will be sworn in at our December general meeting. The Director of Collection Development is Karen Lee. The Director of if you're here, would you please stand? Karen Lee. The Director of Library Services will be Sandy Enke and Chris Palmer. Sandy's over here at the front table. The Director of Membership, Gloria Parker. The Director of Technology, Jim Weichel. He's usually always online because he's in Chicago. Director of Fundraising, Sarah Maxwell. Did I see Sarah here? There she is in the very back, there. The Treasurer will be Donna Scott and Jill Mitchell. Donna is here, and so is Jill. They're in the back. The First Vice President, Stephanie Sparks. She doesn't want to stand up, but she's... And President is Lou McLean. So, okay. So welcome. This is going to be a great year. New slate of officers. We're going to continue working hard. Okay. Please, I'm always asking for people to fill positions, and this is one I wanted to say. Please consider working for our Computer Equipment Committee, whether you're tech savvy or even more so. They need techs. They need people that are interested, that can help out with web pages, webmaster. Also, we do have a new fundraising chair, but do we have any members that would like to join her and be on a fundraising committee? Think of the fun things that you can do. I will say this, in the files in the library, there are past items that were done, activities for fundraising, and I think it's always fun to go back to the 1970s and 80s and see what WVGS was doing to raise funds. Some of that stuff could be repeated. We have a member outreach report, do we? Pam, do you want to just tell folks how many people were reached by doing outreach presentations? I put Pam on the spot.
This year we've been very active in outreach program. We've gone to well over 12 to 15 places, from nursing homes to libraries to other facilities. As far north as Anthem, as far south as Tucson, and as far east as, I don't know. But we've been getting out there, and what happens is when people get on the internet and request us to come, I have one in the spring that's going to have to do with our new director and I are going to go talk to about 30 nurses who have no idea about how to start their family tree and what the library is all about. So if you have a group or anybody who would like for us to come give our 20 to 30 minute spiel, and then we also answer questions on how to get started on things. And I'm sorry my back is to you, but it has to be somewhere. Any questions, or anybody who would be interested in us coming, please let them know about us and we can do that for them.
Thank you very much. Yeah, Stephanie and I went over to that Computer West or Sun City West Computer Club, and I was told by Jerry there'd be a few people there because it's a once a month thing and they have lunch, so come on over, let's talk about WVGS. We were invited to go. 190 people in that room. It was a bit intimidating but fun. We got a lot, not a lot, but we got several new members from that. I'm supposed to announce also, as of November 1st, you can now go online and sign up for seminar. I put some seminar forms over there. If you want to do it here, there's a receipt book. You can see Jill's waving the seminar flag. So get online, register early. Don't do what I did. I didn't even register and showed up at the door. Couldn't figure out why they didn't have a packet for me. That was, yeah, an odd year last year when I was moving. Just so you know, up until January 1st, the member fee for the seminar will be $55, and it will be $65 for non-members. After January 1st, it goes up. So Barb Schroyer, do you want to come, Barb? Oh, here you are. I don't know if you want that one or this one.
It doesn't make any difference. just reminding you, there's a table over here. Susie, or Catherine, wave your hands. There's a table over there with upcoming classes and other information on it, so check that out. And I'm supposed to, Pam Miller wants me to remind people that there are also openings in the, not the other ones, but in the February, I think it's February 2nd or something like that, Finding Your Patriot. Those classes are free because they're sponsored by DAR. Thank you. Oh, and we have some people that are kind of in connection with our panel, but not on our panel, who are showing off their books back there. You could also buy a book if you wanted. Donna Scott, who is on our panel, so her husband may be manning it part of the time while she's getting ready for panel 2. And then Dave Conklin, that many of you know, that's written about 4 books. And I had a couple other people, but they didn't come, so I won't introduce them.
Okay, yes, Stephanie, I'm sorry. Stephanie for Volunteer of the Month.
Okay, I've been a member of WVGS for a while before I ventured to ask what an accessioner was. It turns out the dictionary says it's a person who does, who sorts lab specimens. Here, however, it is the people who actually take the books that we get, books and maps and vertical files, and gets them into the catalog so that we can figure out what we actually have in the library when we come to research. You might be surprised by how much material we get during the year. People whose families and that are no longer interested in genealogy, or the person who was is no longer with us, and so their entire collection of books is brought to us, or their donated collections, or their maps, or whatever. And that the process itself involves figuring out the right Dewey Decimal number, since we are a Dewey Decimal System library, and then attaching a bar tag, creating a QR label, getting it on the book itself, and then putting it in the right place on the shelves. So our 2 accessioners is who we are honoring this month. They are friends as well as partners in getting the information into the catalog. Sue Black was born and raised in and around the Santa Cruz Mountains outside of Los Gatos, California, and graduated from Cal Poly in San Luis Obispo, California. She married John Black in 1973, and they moved to Utah, the perfect place for her to pursue her interest in genealogy. In particular, more about her dad's side of the family. But life took over, and her chance to research was put on hold until they moved to Goodyear 27 years later. Invited to a WVGS meeting by a neighbor, Sue joined and began volunteering about 2004, starting with shelf reading, another interesting thing we do. It was at a time when we were critically short of book space. I mean, as long as I've been involved, we have always been critically short of book space, but in particular then. And Sue learned that Borders bookstore was going out of business. And so as a result, the society bought 2 different sets of shelves from 2 different Borders stores, and groups of volunteers came in and unshelved books, and then put up the bookcases and reshelved the books again. More than a decade later, and that she also learned that the ASU map library was clearing out, and so she snagged a second big map cabinet for us, because we had a growing collection of maps. And that she got it for a song, and so we now have 2 big map cabinets. Her partner, Lynn Corbett, was born and raised in Quincy, Massachusetts. She became interested in genealogy while living in Ohio, because her paternal grandparents were only 50 miles away now, and she hadn't known much about them growing up. But she and Lynn and Joe kept moving around the country and landed in Phoenix in 2006. It was their 16th move since they'd been married. Lynn joined WVGS in 2006 and volunteered to help with obituaries, but the committee was full. Oh, I wish. So she did shelf reading instead. When she met Sue, they started a small genealogy discussion group in Goodyear. shelf reading brought the two of them together, and so when those same maps needed to be cataloged and put accessioned into the catalog, and that Sue volunteered. In fact, she volunteered Lynn, who was out of town as well. They are really good friends. A few years ago, when Linda McCleary retired from accessioning so that she could do some of her own personal research, and that Lynn and Sue stepped up to take on the rest of the accessioning duties, and they continue it to this day. So thank you, Sue and Lynn, and come on up here, please, and for your work on behalf of WVGS. I would say that Mr. Menino, who is in charge of Tidbits and Desert Tracker and a logo project and more things than I can tell you about, is also in charge of certificates, and he forgot. All four of us? Okay. Oh, okay. We're trying to make this a landscape picture. It's not gonna work. Everybody shoulder.
Great, thank you so much. Peggy has something to talk about here for fundraising. You can always find Peggy because she's usually got a costume or something on. These are the tickets. How cute.
Yes, good morning, or afternoon, isn't it? Yes. Today, the Italian SIG is sponsoring the raffling of a wonderful, wonderful basket. It's back in the back. It's where we're selling tickets. There's 6 for $5, and the value of the basket is between $200 and $225. So the lucky winner is really getting a lot of things. I'm going to read what is in the basket, and I call it a menu. It's 2 jars of homemade tomato sauce. It's a recipe from Father John Bonavita Cola, who is the pastor of Our Lady of Lourdes Church in Sun City West, so it's local. A package of fresh potato gnocchi, which is a pasta. A jar of sweet pickled garlic. A jar of mild giardiniana vegetables. A dozen homemade pizzelles, that's cookies, wonderful cookies, by the way. A half dozen of chocolate-covered biscotti cookies, an Italian cookbook, and an Italian apron. Okay? All right, even more. I See You in the Piazza. It's a book by Frances Mays, and she's the author of Under the Tuscan Sun, if you recall. 2 wine glasses to go with 2 wonderful bottles of wine. 2 beautiful hand-knit scarves to get you in the European mood. You know they all wear scarves. A $50 gift certificate to Caraba's Italian restaurant. And all of this is in a wonderful rustic basket. And I urge you to buy tickets because it, of course, it supports your favorite hobby and mine, genealogy. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. There is the silent auction also in the back. And you just sign up with your bid, and if you get the highest bid by November 18th, you'll be the winner of that item. Thank you.
And if you noticed when you walked in, all of the towels Krista Minogue donated, and the pot holders, it's coming around to be holiday time. They're darling, and they'd be wonderful gifts. So check it all out. Okay, just before our break, we're going to have a special presentation. As you well know, Veterans Day came and went on Saturday, and we all want to pay a great thank you to our service members. Shirley Skaggs and her entourage are going to come up and talk about what we're going to do. You got a lot.
My name is Shirley Staggs, and I'm with the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Sun City chapter of Agua Fria. And right now I have 6 members here besides myself. And we're here to present veteran pins to veterans who served between November 1st, 1955 to May 15th, 1975. The pin is located here in this little pin packet. You get the brochure that explains the symbols on the pin. Our chapter has partnered with the Department of Defense, and they provided these items to us for free. And we have another almost 2 years to continue giving out these veteran pins. In 2025 will be the 50th anniversary of the ending of the Vietnam War. And so these are called commemoration pins. Since we're in the Daughters of the American Revolution, we all have patriots. Our patriots were America's first veterans. So, and also, if there's any of you who are surviving spouses of veterans who served during that same period of time, we also have a surviving spouse pin for you in this packet, along with a brochure that explains what the symbols are on the pin. And anyone who did not serve during that period of time, any veteran, we have special pins for you too. So we're going to ask all of you veterans, surviving spouses, and your families, we would like all of you to stand. Well, that's all right. And some of you may have already received some of these pins because we've been handing these out for the last almost 3 years. And I recognize a couple of people who have received them from the Sun City, Sunland Cemetery, the second Tuesday of every month at 9 a.m. They offer free coffee and donuts to any veteran. And one of our members, Debbie over here who's standing, is a veteran. And she has been helping with presenting these pins. Also, if anyone would like a flag lapel pin and you don't qualify for any of these other pins, you can more than welcome to have this. And we have flags to give to everybody as well. So all the veterans and the surviving spouses, we would like you to go back by that piano because Charlie's going to take a group shot. You'd rather have him up?
Okay, the veterans are going to gather for a group picture, and the rest of us, you can take a break if you want. We will be back in 10 minutes with our speakers. Vietnam era vet. Okay. All service, well, those particular dates, Vietnam, but if there's a veteran for all service dates, you could get a little flag pin.
something here that belongs up here.
I can pull it out more. How many chairs do you need? Okay, you find out how many chairs we need. Well, he would like to put this right now. So I gotta help you. Yeah. Which I understand. So that's okay. But probably, but I don't know if we have enough chairs, so we can find out this video. Yeah. A lot of shapes. I haven't tried yet. When this starts, they won't be. So then we'll go outside. We figured that they'd probably go to lunch, 12 to 1, maybe 12:30 to 1:30. I called her last Monday, left a message, didn't hear anything. I called her Thursday, left a message. I just said, family coming in. but she didn't tell anybody. I guess she wants microphones.
Yeah, good.
Okay.
You weren't able to read the front? After all this practice.
I know. So, okay. They did this once before. Worked out then. Hopefully it'll work out now. I did not come down ahead of time during the week to do the calculation. I just came down early yesterday. Jimmy came, so he went up with
He gets those errands, vitamins for his McMartin, and they sell those at Costco cheaper at night. But we couldn't find them in the store, so we said, oh, this will work. Well, yesterday we went to work, and you wouldn't let him check out without a promo code. He spent 40 hours trying to figure out how to either check out without a promo code or get a promo code. He ended up on the phone with somebody from a different country who didn't speak English. Did you have a good time?
I'll take this one. Thank you.
Thank you. He never did get his business job. So since I was going to have I hope today to tell him I had to look at it, I came early and I went on the chat instead of trying to call somebody. And so we were able to check out how to run the road. And they said, oh, that was just a glitch. There are your cash, sign out, sign back in. And I did, and I figured out I just never got it. And he was so frustrated. I don't either. Yep. So at least with chat, you don't have to find your way past the accent.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks ago, we were using it. And it said not up right. So, even a week or so later,
We're going to get started here with our panel. As everybody has a chair. Charlie's heading for the light switch. I'm going to have them all stand up again so they can applaud.
Someone asked about a surviving spouse band. I don't know who it is. And we have lots of flags.
Okay.
To everybody.
Okay. I'll mention it.
And I don't know who it was, but they don't. The person served between those two years, those two time frames. Anywhere in the country, anywhere.
Even like the lady from UK, because her people went over to Vietnam.
Who?
There was a brand new member here that was from England.
I gave her.
Yeah, she has a pleasure.
Right.
Okay. One last thing we need to do is, again, we're going to ask for the veterans to please stand. Now that you have your flags, your pins, your patches, if you're a spouse of a veteran, could you all stand? I know you've done this once before, but you deserve all of our applause. Thank you. And Shirley mentioned that a lady came to her regarding the spouse's pin, and she missed getting it. So if you can see Shirley right here after the meeting, then she'll make sure you have that pin. Okay, I'm going to turn the mic over to Barbara, and she's going to invite the panel.
That's okay. Let's see, I have 4 panelists up here, and they should be making their way to the front. While I'm mentioning that, we have 2 people that are showing off their books. They're also willing to sell their books. They're 2 of our members. One is our panelist, Donna Scott, who has written a book, Hannah's Locket. And the other is Dave Conklin, whom some of you know. He's written 4 books, Descendants of Richard Thomas Taylor, Descendants of Jose Antonio Guerra, and Conklin Marinkovic, Family History. The Spanish was easier than the Polish or whatever it is. You can just go up and don't trip over these. She's sitting down. And we need all the panelists up here. Okay, while the panelists are coming, first of all, I have a list. I only got back 2 pages. I'm working on it, of all the people that have written articles in the Desert Tracker. And I only am back to 2012. So if I continue going, I'll probably have at least 2 more pages. So if you're not on the panel and you've written in Desert Tracker, it isn't because you didn't write as well. It's just because we were selective. We took some recent panelists. We took one because she's about to have an article published in a well-known journal, the Connecticut Nutmegger. So these are just selective. So if you have ever written an article for the Desert Tracker, would you please stand? Because I know there are a lot of people that have done so, including our president, who's written 3 articles. She claims no, but she has. I've seen them. Okay, and Dave Conklin is way there in the back. He's also written, and he's the other person with the books. Donna Scott, who's on our panel, I guess her husband, what's his name? Rick is taking care of her books right now. We're going to do this in alphabetical order. Janet Buchanan, who is at the end with the shorter hair. Well, not quite, the medium. Let's see. Okay. Janet is, you're chairman of the CDC Collection Development Committee. Janet has written several articles. She's got one coming up in the Nutmegger.
It's already out.
It's already out. So it was out in the current issue? Oh, and she's got a copy with her.
Yes, Sandy has accessioned it and scanned it.
Wow, okay. Yes. And so you can just go in and you can
go to the Connecticut Nutmegger periodicals, and it's the spring issue this year, 2023.
Yeah. So just go into where it says periodicals. There's a place you can put titles when you go into the catalog, and you can put the name of the journal, and it's going to be the most recent issue? Okay, fine.
Correct.
Okay, next in alphabetical order is Donna Scott.
Bus.
Is it by last name?
I'm going by, well, wait a minute. Yes. I did it by first name, yes. But then it didn't work. Wait a minute, you're not next. Ken is next. Okay. This proves that your director of education cannot alphabetical. I don't really know Ken Buss very well. I know he must be very good in genealogy because he has a certificate from Boston University in that, which he earned fairly recently.
Yeah, 5 years ago.
5 years ago. He's also a member of the SAR, Sons of the American. No, you aren't. No, it's somebody else I'm confusing. We don't know any. Tell us something else about you.
I'm retired. I worked at Glendale Community College for a number of years, and then got interested in genealogy really when I was way back in high school, and have been pursuing it ever since then.
Okay. Now we can go to, since we're going in that alphabetical order, Sally, who's on that side of you. Sally is a longtime WVGS member. She's currently co-chair of fundraising. She gets to wear costumes just like Peggy. And she's on the panel because she writes more recent stuff about her family, things that she remembers, and her stories are really, they have a lot of detail. Some of them are funny and some of them are kind of sad, but they just make you feel good reading them. And she's also a member of the Writing Your Family History group, our SIG. Yes. And Donna, I guess you're last in that. Donna spends half her year in Montana.
Yes.
And half of it here. She's co-treasurer with Jill Mitchell. She's written 3 Desert Tracker articles in addition to the book she wrote.
Yeah, in addition to the book.
Okay. Anything else you want to say?
Well, professionally, I was a CPA, not a writer, but I've been interested in genealogy again since I was a teenager and my mother started doing it. So in retirement, I drug my husband all over the country to where our ancestors were from, and been doing most of it online though. And I wrote about my husband's ancestors and my ancestors that I thought were interesting. Well, I wrote about all of them, I just didn't publish all of them.
Okay. And I apologize for getting you mixed up with one of our book writers that didn't come. So we have a book writer that did have a book that won an award from SAR. And I invited him to come show his books off today, Jim Bish, but he didn't, and Tom Drummond was also unable to come and show his books off that he's written. Both of those, all the books that the people have written, I believe, are in our library. If you want to take a quick look and don't see a look at them today, they're in there. They're under, I believe, 929, Sandy, 920. They're all 929.2, and they're usually by the author's last name, but some of them, like the one by Bish, is strictly about George Washington, so it's under Washington, and it is not fully accessioned yet. Okay. I'm coming up and sitting down. Okay. Okay, and then I'll just pass that down. Okay, first of all, what I want to know, can everyone hear me on this? Okay.
I want to know why you selected, just choose one of your articles that you wrote, not your book, and I want to know why you selected that topic or subject.
Want to start with me then?
Yeah, we'll just send it down.
Okay, the first article I wrote in the Desert Tracker was maybe 2019. Anyway, it was before the pandemic. So I found my husband's most interesting ancestor because my family tree is pretty boring, but my husband had an ancestor who was a 49er, and he financed the trip from Ohio. And my husband and I followed almost his entire journey on the California Trail. And yeah, we went back to Ohio, researched his life, saw the house he built, and I just felt like that was an interesting story to share.
Okay. And do you happen to have, you don't have a little sample of it to read or something?
I was looking for my copies of the Desert Trackers, and I could only find one, so I think I must have taken that one to Montana, the one about William Seidel.
You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have Rick look through your book and find just a couple of sentences that you've written that he thinks would be really good for you to read to people. Can you do that, Rick? And then after you find it, just bring it up and we'll interrupt whatever we're doing and we'll go on with that. Okay, now stop that.
The question was, how did I choose this topic, right? Okay, I've only had one article published in the Desert Tracker. I submitted it in 2021. There was a kind of a lull in activity for the Desert Tracker, and it wasn't published until just recently. And I was pleased that they selected it for publication. I chose it because, as Barbara mentioned, I was in a class with Boston University. It was an online class in genealogical research. And the assignment, one of the assignments, it was a really intense class. You have an assignment like every few days. You have to get on track and do something else. But this was take a genealogical question and answer it using available materials in articles and documents to prove or disprove the question. And again, I went to one of my wife's ancestors because he had a very interesting life. He immigrated to the United States in the 1840s to New York, and then he served in the Civil War in the New York Infantry. And he had his thumb shot off in the war, and he was a disabled veteran. And he also served as an honor guard at when Lincoln was lying in state after his assassination in Washington, D.C. So he had a really interesting life. And the question, though, that the family had always talked about, or my wife's family, my mother-in-law particularly, was she heard the story that he was paid to fight in the Civil War by somebody else. He took the place of somebody else, and that it was maybe his brother, and that after the war, when he came back, a wounded veteran missing his thumb, the brother-in-law or the brother didn't make good on the promise to pay him. So that was the story, and my assignment was to research that and find out what I could find out using available genealogical records and documentation.
Thank you.
Did he what?
Did he get paid?
Well, I'll come back to that, I guess.
We'll have to wait for that.
Right, I gotta leave them hanging here.
Didn't? Can you hear me from this?
Yeah.
Okay, well, my things are always kind of humorous because that's how I go through life. And anyhow, mine was about dinners at my grandma's. And usually at Easter, and whenever it suited her fancy, she would color her mashed potatoes. And we would never knew what they were going to be, usually pink, green, blue. And kids always enjoyed that. But, you know, the grown-ups were kind of iffy about it. And as we got older, because we usually go down there on Sundays, you know, you'd take your friends along, and, you know, you'd kind of not be as thrilled about them as your friends thought you really had a really cool grandma, because their grandmothers wouldn't do things like that, but yours would. And as we got older, we'd you know, take boyfriends down there, and they were usually in the military, and they really loved things like that because it reminded them of home. And well, I think
Okay, you've given us kind of a little hint of that story. People are going to have to go to the tracker and look it up in the catalog to find the rest of that story.
That's right.
And if they want any more of your stories, they're either going to have to do the same thing, or they can come to Writing Your Family History, because you'll probably be reading a story then that you've written.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Pass it on to Janet.
Well, I have actually written 6 articles for the Desert Tracker. I haven't done anything recently, but the one that I really enjoyed the most was an article that I did for the Illinois State Genealogical Society Quarterly, and it's about my Beckington family. And if you've ever heard that name, we are related to every single one in the United States. There are no other Beckington families here as far as I have been able to find. But they came over from England in 1847, and they came by ship, and they got off in New York. And the story that we had been told, passed down from a child of theirs to a daughter, was that they came with 12 children. I can't remember the number exactly, but they had a baby, and he passed away on the ship just before they got to New York. And apparently the mother refused to bury him at sea. And according to this family legend, she talked the captain into, it's been a while since I've done this, but talked him into pulling over, probably meaning pulling over, getting a little boat out and up to Long Island, and they buried him on Long Island someplace right there. So this story, I labeled it Water, Both Life and Death, to the Beckington family, because they had that baby die on the water, but yet it brought them to America. Then they came probably 47, they probably came down the Erie Canal and across the what they used to call Chicago Road, and actually settled in Boone County, Illinois, which is north. And then that was, you know, so this is a story about that, which I had fun researching and writing.
Hey, I'm going to keep it right down there with you, Janet, right now, because I know this article that you wrote for the Illinois Journal, and the one that you did for the Nutmegger, especially the one you did for the Nutmegger, is a highly sourced, a lot of citations and that sort of thing, which is a really different style than what Sally writes.
140 footnotes that I had to do for this one.
Yeah.
It was a challenge. It took me years off and on. I don't want to discourage you, but never again.
Okay. So what I want to know, Janet, is if you're just writing something about your family, what's your preferred style of doing it?
I'm not sure what you meant by style. I hear about a story or I research enough to find a story, and then I just start writing. If it's for something like the Desert Tracker, I might keep track of footnotes or key documentation, so if anybody asked me, but I wouldn't necessarily have it all on there. So Desert Tracker, and then the same thing with, I've written 3 articles in a publication in Ypsilanti, Michigan, where I come from. I'll get it. Where I come from, and it's about family that lived there. And again, I didn't have to have a lot of footnotes, but I basically just wrote about things that I had found of interest while I did research.
So Sally, yours are all informal?
Very.
They're all just like Sally.
Yes.
Okay, so we know your preferred style. Ken, if you were writing something and it wasn't for a Boston University class or something like that, what would you?
Well, yeah, there is a difference. I'm glad you brought that up. If you're writing an article for publication, you have to have more of an academic approach to doing it, and with the footnotes and citations and so on. And there are, I have a huge, thick book for genealogical citations. I mean, the way you write a citation depends on where you got the information. If a phone call from your Aunt Harriet, that's one type of citation. And if it's an email from your second cousin, that's another type of citation. So there really is an order for these things. And journals, professional journals like the ones you published in, are very particular about that, right? For my own self, for myself, I've written some books for my family, just for my siblings, and now they have children and grandchildren and so on. And I've done books. I've done one book on my mother's side, one book on my father's side. That's a different style of writing, although I still use footnotes to prove what I'm saying. Like if I use a census record, I cite that census record when I do that, because I want anybody in the future who reads it will be able to check it and see that, yes, there was a source for that information and it's provable. It's something that you can demonstrate. And but my style tends to be a little more casual than formal academic when I do that. And I always remember that when you're talking about genealogy to people, sometimes their eyes glaze over, because you just go, well, her second husband had 2 children by his first marriage, and then and they just go, God, wake me up. And to us, the people in this room, it's exciting to know this, to find this. Wow, he had a second wife. But for other people, it's not really that big of a deal. So you have to kind of make it interesting. I like to tease out stories when there's a good story, and lead people through that story. I've actually found an ancestor, a distant relative, who committed suicide by drowning himself in a lake in Wisconsin. So I mean, that was a story that nobody knew about in the family. And if you can then introduce that and then lead people into it and then give the evidence for it and write it in a clear way, I think that's what I'm after.
Okay, Donna, now I'm going to change this for you now that you've thought what you were going to say. You've written a book, Hannah's Locket, which is back there. Hannah's Legacy.
That's okay.
Okay. I should quit multitasking. Okay. So it's Hannah's Legacy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. So she's written a book. Her book actually classifies as
historical fiction because she did lots of research on it. She's basing it on a lot of genealogical research, but a lot of context too on what Donna knows about these places and those times. And so that's a book which is classified as historical fiction. She's also written articles about her family in the tracker. So can you talk about the different styles or what's different when you're doing that?
Yes. Well, so first of all, the book, to save Rick from coming up here, I'll tell you my favorite sentence in the book. The book was written with the voice of my great-grandmother, who was an uneducated country woman. I pretended she wrote the story of her grandmother. My favorite sentence is, when they was fixin' to move to Texas, Uncle Samuel up and died, because that's the way people talked, and I don't know what he died from, so I just said it like that. So that was the style in the novel. The style in my articles in the Desert Tracker are just more straightforward. First of all, I have no training as a writer. I took English in high school. In college, I took the minimum English. So, because I wasn't planning to write, I was going to be an accountant. I didn't need to know how to write. So when I decided there were stories I knew that I wanted to tell, it was a struggle. So I want to encourage people who think, well, I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write. I don't know how to tell a story. But you have stories in you to tell. And if you don't tell them, who is going to know this in the future? If you don't say the name of your ancestor, who is going to know about them? So my style is just straightforward. Start at the beginning and go to the end. Some of my articles, I had footnotes. Some I just had citations within the story. I like lots of pictures because I think pictures add so much to the story. So I would call my style a lot of pictures, because you can see what the people look like, not just hear their name. That answer your question?
Well, I think it answered my question. Now, people can ask us questions later, so they may have other questions for you. So be prepared for that. Okay, I think we kind of covered the part on documenting or not documenting. Now, something some people may want to know is you handed your story into Desert Tracker, and the Desert Tracker right now is handled by Charlie Menino. I'm going to do this right, Charlie, it's okay. Charlie Menino has the tidbits every month, so he's kind of, because Desert Tracker is now part of tidbits, we have to say Charlie is, we make Charlie important, okay, and no, Charlie does a great job with tidbits, and he also helps out and sees that Tracker is in there, correct, Jackie? Jackie is our editor for Desert Tracker. Raise your hand in case there's possibly anybody here that does not know Jackie Manasco. And Jackie's written at least 3 articles in the Desert Tracker herself, I think more. Okay, so what I'm going to ask these people is, when you're doing this article, and I know this is different for Ken, because Ken turned his in, and he was telling me some little tiny thing he got marked down tiny amount for in these fancy classes that you take, like Boston University. They do that. I got a couple of points taken off because I on the last assignment I turned in a similar class. I mean, this is horrible. In a citation, I put a comma where I should have a semicolon. Oh. Okay. So,
is it for Ken?
It's for anybody talking about your article, editing it. Was it changed at all? Were you asked to make any modifications?
Oh, since I've got the microphone, I'll just start out. When I did my articles for the Desert Tracker, Jackie wasn't doing it. Carla Rideout was doing it. And when it came out, there were some minor editing comments. Or she came back to me one time because she didn't understand how Texas land records are, because they don't use the survey system, and I didn't know what to call it. So just minor editing is all I've experienced.
Well, I'll reference what you just mentioned. When I turned this assignment in and I got it back, they said you would have got the highest mark on this because it was really well done. But there was one fact that you didn't document enough, and that was, again, this gets complicated. So I'm glad you're all genealogists. But so there were two men that were of the right age to be drafted in the Civil War. One of them was named Nicholas and one was named Frank. And these two men were married to two sisters, and the sisters were Maria and Susan. Maria and Susan were sisters. Frank and Nicholas were then brothers-in-law. So Frank got a draft notice from the Union Army, and they said, either you come and serve in the Army or you find somebody that will serve for you. So he went to his brother-in-law, Nicholas, and he said, would you do this for me? I'll pay you X number of dollars. What that did was it stopped the draft process. In other words, then if he agreed to serve for his brother-in-law, then neither one of them would ever get a draft notice again. In order to avoid getting drafted, you either had to pay the government $300 or go and serve, or find someone who would serve for you. And not only that, but if you paid $300 this month and you got excused, you might get another draft notice next month and have to pay $300 again. That was a lot of money before the Civil War, a lot. So these families agreed, okay, Nicholas is going to go serve, you're going to pay him some money when he comes back. And the families lived literally next door to each other on farms. So they had provisions and a means of getting food and so on. Plus, Frank was a fine carpenter, a joiner. And so he could make a living building furniture and selling furniture. So they decided this. And in my article, I said, what was the relationship between these two men? They were brothers-in-law. And to prove that, I cited a website that was somebody else's family tree. They said, no, that's not good enough. You can't just use somebody else's website as a source, because as we all know, those websites, those family trees on Ancestry, you can't depend on anything in those family trees. So I had to prove, so they gave me a little bit lower grade on the paper. And it bothered me so much that I went back and tried to find proof that they were, in fact, they had this relationship, that the two sisters were the wives of these two men, and therefore that made them brothers-in-law. And I found it. I found a church record, and then I put that into the article. So the article that appeared in Desert Tracker was much better than the original. That piece that I wrote for my class assignment.
So we got the best article.
Yep. And I didn't have to do, or I didn't do sourcing because they're just, yes, I am the source. I just didn't need to do it because I was just writing about my family, and I just didn't need sources.
It's just a different style article.
All my articles are different.
Really, I think of And all of the articles that I wrote, including the one in Nutmegger, I'm not sure they changed much of anything in the article itself. But I did have some footnotes that they questioned, and so I was able to take care of those to their satisfaction. The only time I had, again, in the Desert Tracker, I don't think anybody changed anything that I can remember, except one editor a long time ago I did add some footnotes in it, and they were taken off before it was published. Maybe it was space, I don't know. But I've really not, I edit these things until I'm sick of it. So I've always felt pretty confident in what I was writing.
Okay. I just thought I'd ask that because I know people that are timid about, there are some people here who haven't written an article for the Desert Tracker. Could we see the hands of all of us who haven't been brave enough to do that? Okay. So those people are probably worried maybe they won't like my article and they'll just change it a whole lot. And Jackie's not going to do that. Jackie's nice. Well, you know what, Jackie? You can come up here and I'll give you the mic so you can talk for a couple of minutes as our editor. And then people can hear you even better. And I'm going to stand way back because I don't want to fall off the stage. I had to move our chairs back as far as possible. Okay.
Thanks. I'm very nervous about this. Like I said, I feel very inept. This just kind of fell into my lap, being the editor of these things. I'm in no way worthy of doing some of the types of editing that have been talked about up here, like coming back and saying you need a semicolon instead of a comma in that particular citation, or the other one that was mentioned about having to prove something. I'm not trained genealogist like some of these folks up here. It's merely something that I took up after I retired, and this editing kind of fell into my lap. And my only passion is that everybody has at least one story that they should leave. And I'm sort of proud that the Desert Tracker and the Tidbits now have come together, because we also do something called a publications exchange. And I have about 14 other entities that, when the Tidbits is now published digitally, I send them a digital copy of our Tidbits every month. I, put it on as an attachment to places like the Los Angeles Public Library, the Minnesota Historical Society, the Wisconsin Historical Society, Allen County Public Library. That's an example of the types of entities that are getting these. So many of you, when you're looking for information about a family member and you're out there online and just doing Google searches even, sometimes a name will come up in a very unlikely place. And you'll see something and you'll go, holy smoke, I never knew that about my family. And it leads to whole new discoveries about our family. So I would encourage you to write things. And you've got the holidays coming up. What stories, what color are the cookies in Sally's grandma's house at the holidays? So I talked too much.
But as you were saying, Jackie, when you get the stories in there and then they get out, and they even get out to other places beyond WVGS, this is one way of preserving your research and passing it on. Your particular grandchild or something may not be interested ever in genealogy, but those distant cousins are, and they want those stories. Anything anybody wants to add? I'm going to go back shortly and interview Dave. I wasn't supposed to, but I will.
So a couple people have talked about their grades. You do a story for the Desert Tracker. Oh. Is it on?
Yeah.
No.
We'll get all good closer.
Yeah, hold it, okay. Yeah, this one is better. If you submit a story to the Desert Tracker, you will not get a grade back on it. You can write however you want, say what you want. If Jackie wants to add a comma because you forgot the comma, she will do that, so you don't even have to worry about that. The more important thing is telling your story. And if you don't have a family member that is interesting enough to write about, then you can write about your researching of your family and where you've had to go and how you've been so stupid you're stumbling around on the internet and you fell in a hole and you came up with something you weren't even looking for that you had no idea was there, and you send it to your relatives and they say, where did you find this? And you go, I don't know, I was just on the internet and I fell in a hole and I didn't know how to get back out. So every one of us has a story to tell, and the rest of us will be interested in it. Anyone else?
Well, I was really going to say the very same thing, and somebody else a little earlier put it in different words. Put these things down, they're going to get lost. And I don't care if you just write a journal or talk into a recorder. Get this information out there, and again, one of your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren someday will want this information. They need to hear these stories. So don't hesitate, don't worry about spelling or grammar, just get it down. And if you want to put it in the Desert Tracker or something and you feel inadequate, ask somebody else to look at it just to, make sure that it's okay to print, but I can't imagine it won't be.
Sally, Ken, do you have anything? I'm wandering back to Dave.
Well, I guess I should finish the story in a sense. There were two research questions that I was pursuing. One was it really true that someone could pay another man to serve in his place in the Civil War? It was true, and I found that record. I found the citation for that, and then I also found the Civil War record. And by the way, if any of you have Civil War ancestors on either the North or the South, the National Archives is a great place to get the full file, and they kept amazingly accurate records and detailed records in the Civil War. Things like how much every man got paid every month and things like that. There's just scads of information in the National Archives, and if you write to the National Archives and pay a fee, they'll photocopy the whole file and send it back to you. And it's a wonderful source. But so I found in the Civil War file of this individual that it actually mentions that he served in place of another man who was drafted, and it gave that man's name, and it turned out to be his brother-in-law. The other part of the story was that there was a rumor or a family anecdote that there was bad feeling about it when he came back from the war and he didn't get his full compensation. I couldn't find any evidence of that, of course. That's just a family rumor, and it might be true, but the evidence, the circumstantial evidence, doesn't bear that out. These families lived literally next door to each other on adjoining farms, adjacent farms, and they named their children after each other. And they had big families of 8 or 9 or 10 children, and they seemed to have a close relationship their whole life, and I couldn't find any evidence that there was a falling out of any kind. And so I feel like I answered those two questions, and I think when you're writing an article like this, it's good to start with some questions and then try to find the answers. And even if you can't find a definitive source to answer a question, kind of write what you speculate happened and base it on other things like that.
Okay, thank you, Ken. Okay, well, I'm back here with Dave Conklin, and I'm just going to let him say a couple of words about his writing style. I wasn't going to include book writers, but since the rest didn't come and you're the only one besides Donna, and your style is a little bit different because your style is more a family research one.
Yeah. I don't think this is working.
Is it working? It isn't working?
It is?
You're fine.
You can hear me? Maybe I'm not working. Okay. I can't. Yeah, for these family histories, I actually got the idea to format them based on the program I got, the application Family Tree Maker. So I went in there and went to publish, and there's a thing called Smart Story. And after I laid out the trees and all that kind of stuff, I published them. Basically, I hung the rest of the stuff on to the Family Tree Maker Smart Story. So I started that with that, and then I just filled in the blanks. I interviewed a lot of the people in my books personally, and filled that in, and so it was kind of based on a computer application, which made it everyone's the same style, but you wouldn't think that it was, because I went in depth on each person and put in details that I didn't put in that weren't in the application. So does that help?
Yeah, that helps. Now that's his description of what he started with basically, but he did lots of fine tuning on it, added a lot of pictures, had some charts. I know he had some pictures of their DNA, the ethnicity on one of the families that he was showing me the other day. So if you look at his books, you're going to see that, but I wanted to give Dave credit because
I'm finishing up another journal. Like they said, if you don't write something about yourself, nobody will know what you did. So I've got a journal I kept when I was in the Iraq War, and I'm just finishing that up, but I'm looking for editors and proofreaders. And so I would be interested to see what the panel up there did for their proofreading.
okay, let's see if anybody had anybody double check their stuff before. I don't think Ken and I are supposed to on our formal stuff, but I mean, otherwise, yeah. If I was reading something otherwise, and I'd ask somebody, hey, would you read this before I put it in the Desert Tracker? I'm back up here, so any.
I always ask my wife to, she's an English teacher. We're both English teachers, but you need to have more eyes on stuff. Yeah, so she does a good job of editing, of proofreading.
So you were actually an English teacher?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Ah, so you so what did you do to encourage your students to keep writing?
Yeah, they wanted a grade, a good. Yeah, that's a challenge. I guess that's a pedagogical challenge for English teachers to get people to write. Some students just loathe writing, loathe reading. Well, answer the question. That's why I said start with a question that your family has been wondering about. When did great-grandpa immigrate, and why did he immigrate? And see if you can answer that question and then write about it.
Janet has something to say.
Well, actually, about 10 years ago, one of the people that used to come with me, Susan Kruger, who has done a lot of articles in Desert Tracker, she had a writing group, and we had just met a few months before that, and she said, "Would you like to come?" And I said, "I don't have any stories to write." She said, "Oh, we'll change that." And so I went there and started writing. But part of it was that they would help edit. So it wasn't just me. Like you said, I have a husband who will read it, and I had this writers group. So they would, not the footnotes, all of that, but just the writing part of it, and they would go over it. So that helped a lot, and it helped me to refine my ability to write what little I have.
I just counted up, and she had at least 13 articles between 2012 and 2020, and maybe some earlier than that, because I didn't get that.
She was a genealogist. She is a genealogist, but mostly she did it to find a family story, and then she'd write about it. She was a big writer, and she was very good at it. So.
And she used you?
Yes. And she and another woman, Priscilla Claypool, I think she's had some in there, and they used to come, but I think they're both dropping their membership because they just aren't doing any more research.
So, Sally, have you always written stories, or did you start this when you were well into your adulthood?
Yes.
Answer my story.
Writing.
No, I didn't. I did not spend my teen years writing. I waited until I started doing genealogy. And if I wanted somebody to proof it, I would send it to my sister, who was 9 years younger, and she would say, "I don't remember any of this." And I would write back that, "Well, you just have a poor memory." But she would proof it for me.
Donna, or did you just wait until you'd done accounting for a long time?
Oh, yeah, I did not write until I was retired or almost retired. Now I use one of my daughters to proof for me, but the Word program, that helps immensely, gives you the confidence that, okay, this sentence does make sense. Now I have I just had Word 97 when I wrote my articles in my book. Now I have Word 365, and it everything, it doesn't like the word don't, you have to put do not, and even is this politically correct? So the article I'm working on right now, which planning to submit tomorrow, every day it's tomorrow, and then I think, oh, I'm not quite ready yet. So it's about my mentally ill ancestor. So I sent it to my daughter, and she's like, yeah, mentally ill is not politically correct. Let's say mental health issues. So, and then I looked down and I saw, so I changed it all to mental health issues. And then I looked down at the editing where it said like geopolitical, and I got a big check mark there. So, so anyway, Word will do your editing for you.
Word hasn't ever told me about politically correct and all that stuff. Jackie hasn't gotten that either. I'm offended.
Do you have Word 365?
I have Word 365. They just tell me if I haven't spelled something right, which is really helpful because my spelling isn't.
They'll point out a comma.
Yes, they do that. Or where you shouldn't have put a comma before but or something. Our English teacher here would know where those places were. Do we have, while we zapped through this pretty fast. We probably have people with some questions out there. So we have, at least 10 or 15 minutes we can ask some questions. So if you have any questions about writing or about what kind of articles are appropriate for the tracker. Jackie could answer those. Yes.
I assume, based on what you've said, that not only are you trying to tell a story, but in some instances you talk about how you arrived at finding some of these facts.
That's a possibility, to be really truthful with you. And we do have a number of articles where somebody tells how they found out the facts. It's considered best simply to write the story rather than taking somebody all the way through your process of doing so. So if you have a reason for doing that, so I'm not criticizing anybody's writing, I'm just saying I have heard that that's the best policy in writing. What do you think, Ken?
I think we should let you finish your question. And
Yeah, I would suggest talking about I went to Ancestry or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
I've had a couple instances where I've spent 30 years of it trying to find out some information to hone in on a important piece of information regarding an ancestor and what I've been doing, groups and everything else I went through, without going into a lot of detail. But it's just, to me, it's interesting to a matter of perseverance and a matter of luck that I was able to establish some important facts about my grandparents and my great-grandparents. That's what I'm getting at.
Okay, so now I'm following what you're asking again. Yeah, that's what a lot of actually the articles in journals like the really fancy ones like the NGS Quarterly, they're all many times about facts that people have had. Yes, in the past they thought these things, or this has been the story people always told, and now somebody is going out and researching it and pulling in more evidence, and they're able to establish that no, these were not the parents of Hezekiah or whomever, or yes, these were actually the parents of Hezekiah, or these are the actual parents, or whatever it is that they're trying to prove, whatever their question is, who were Hezekiah's parents.
Or I would address this to the gentleman, perhaps how you found it might be worthy of putting in a note at the end of your story.
well, yeah, and you'll see that in these journals, like she mentioned, they often do that. They say, I'm indebted to such and such for this tip that I found, and that that's part of the source. The articles in a journal like this, the National Genealogical Society, sometimes half the page is footnotes, and it gets tedious. But they're trying to prove something. It's called a genealogical proof, and sometimes you won't find the smoking gun, but you'll find evidence that the gun was fired in that room, and so on and so on. So that's how they approach it, that you narrow it down, you eliminate all the other possibilities for how this could have happened, and then you arrive at a conclusion. It's like building a legal case in some cases.
My article in the Nutmegger was similar. I took a family, I'd researched them forever, and I was able to add 2 more children to the family. I was able to identify the correct name of his second wife, and I was able to prove that a lot of people on Ancestry who put another child in the family is not in that family. And you have to footnote that kind of stuff. So that's what I did. Whether anybody on Ancestry's trees ever change them because of this article, they don't pay attention to you. And even if you say it is, I can prove it because of A, B, and C, they don't respond. They don't care. They've got their tree. That's all they care about. But that's what this article in particular was. I wanted to straighten out some things in that family.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good example. I thought he was getting at something else. Thanks, Ken. Yeah. So yes, that kind of article of proving something is going through the process in another article is okay, but it's better if you just tell the story of the family and then you put it in. So those are two different things. But in this case, you're trying to prove that you're able to, you have a different answer than what people have had in the past, or that you have additional information that supports a story that's been told that didn't have good documentation before. But we don't really need support for the mashed potatoes and Sally's story. Pictures would help, but they probably forgot to take those. Or else they took them in black and white. Yes, Lou? Marilyn is a past editor of the Desert Tracker. You edited for a number of years, I know.
I just wanted to add something that was brought up earlier. It does have to do with genealogy and research, but breakfast table. My sister and brother-in-law's house, that was where all the sat around casually after breakfast or lunch and eat cold potatoes. I had the opportunity to be sitting at the table with my brother-in-law who served in World War II in Italy. And he started telling this story about his experience in the military in Italy and what he did. I didn't ask him that direct question. And sometimes I've come to some people, I think but I are one. But they act like if you ask them a question, you're going to put them on America's Most Wanted. But I didn't ask him a direct question. I just had my cell phone with my recorder and I tapped on it and let him tell his story. I sent that recorded information to his 3 daughters, and he died a couple of years later, and they have written to me since how wonderful it was to be able to replay that recording, hear his voice, and hear the story. So with the holidays coming up, take advantage of it with someone older or someone who maybe has a story that they haven't told but they'd like to. I mean, take advantage of it because there is somebody that would like to hear it and like to hear their voice in the years to come.
Yeah, I noticed that Desert Tracker also at times, while we're asking for stories and articles from members, we also at times publish something where somebody back in the family that's no longer living has written something, and they've been submitted by someone else. So we have that also that is in there sometimes. Any other questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Yes, Lou.
My only comment is, I think it's wonderful when you can do research, you have an ancestor, you can write a story about them, but there's something inside of each one of you that you could write about. It's your own life. Whether you experienced disasters in your life or something that was impacting to you, a person that impacted you the most in your youth, all kinds of different chapters in a book of you. And there's so many other facets, but don't say you don't have anything to write about because you're sitting here and you're alive. And so if you look into yourself, there's stuff that your kids, grandkids, great-grandkids are going to want to read about someday. So consider that too.
May I add to that? I wrote a book about myself earlier this year, and I used a company called Storyworth, and it's a 1-year subscription. They send you an email every week with a question, and the question might be, what's the worst food you've ever eaten? Or did you date in high school?
Okay, Janet has something to
Well,
add.
I was thinking that I needed to say that very same thing. My daughter last year for Christmas, or 2 years ago, gave both my husband and I Storyworth. And we thought it was a wonderful idea. It got to be like 3/4 of the way through the year, and I said to Bruce one day, I said, this is our Christmas present. We are working our tails off every week to write a story and answer the questions. And then we're going to print up a book and give it to her. But it really does make you think about the questions, because you have a question every week. Even if you don't sign up for it completely, it gives you the questions and it makes you think about it and makes you realize you do have something to say. But it is a very good organization.
Anybody else? Yes, Gloria?
I have a question. Is there a minimum or maximum length for articles submitted because of traffic?
There is no minimum. I mean, I've seen things that are a page or less, and I think it goes up to maybe 8, 10, possibly even 12 pages, 8 or... What?
It's digital.
It's digital, so we can, I mean, I don't think they're going to put a whole book in it, but I mean, seriously, if somebody in here wrote a formal, what's called a case study, which is what's like in the quarterly there, some of those case studies run 20 pages. I mean, because they are detailed. That's not what people usually write, but sometimes in a bio of somebody, if you're writing about a person in your family, it's probably going to often run 5 or 10 pages, even if you're not documenting, I think. Janet? Something, but it could be a page, could be a half a page. Pictures are okay too in the tracker.
In the family history writing group, they asked us to keep our stories to 5 minutes or less.
Yes.
And typically that ends up being about a page and a half to 2 pages. If you go more than that, it's typically longer to read it aloud. So,
Yeah.
you know, that's a gauge of.
Yeah. And we get some really great stories in those 5 minutes. Doreen down here also writes some very good stories. And Doreen has another way that she tells some stories, but you're going to find that out in the spring when she does a program here with a film. Right? Just giving you a hint on that. I think it's in March, isn't it? They don't know what I'm talking about, so they'll find out in the spring. A few people do. Yes. So check the web page and you'll be able to figure out what Doreen is going to do for a program.
It's another form or way and important for telling stories and why and what
Yes. It's a video. It's a fairly lengthy video, which you'll enjoy. And I think we had another video story before a couple of years ago from some people. I think they were sisters or close relatives, and they had gone to Germany or someplace in Europe for research, and so you had that kind of storytelling too. Anything else? I'm passing this down, or whichever one you want. Final comment.
I have a question for the editor, I guess. When my article was published, I noticed that they put the title of the family, the name of the family, the surname of the family as the title, and it said Weiss Family History, 1757 to 1837. That wasn't in anything that I put on the article. So I'm wondering if that's a standard that you're using now. Are you categorizing these by family names? Well, I noticed that the Desert Tracker is now searchable. So, so if let's say I was researching a family named Dunnington or something, and I wanted to see if there are any articles in the Desert Tracker about them, I could search for that. Is that why they're doing that now? Like you're going to put a name? Yeah.
Okay, we're kind of running out of time. I will say on titles, I was reading something by Tom Jones. This is really fast. That if you title an article that you do, you want to title it with some words that are going to come up in a search, such as the family surname or the location or something. And Lou says we have to quit talking because there's a raffle.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It was so interesting. Sally, will you wait, please? We have a special escort for you. Don't start walking, lady. The last thing we're going to do before we have to adjourn, actually we could adjourn the meeting, is have our basket raffle. Okay. So there's going to be one winner for the basket, the Italian basket, and thank you to the SIG for furnishing a lovely basket. I invite any other SIG to create their own basket to raffle. We have a lot of openings, so if any of the other SIGs are inclined, have at it. Okay, Peggy.
Just to let you know, we collected $227 today for the yeah. I'm very gratified, and I know that the Italian SIG members will feel the same way. Thank you. Okay, who's going to pull? How? All right, go ahead, Barb.
I don't have anything in here. Oh, I can even tell you that the number is 5346844. That's 5346844.
Oh, wait a minute.
Did I do something wrong?
No, wait a second.
No, wait. I might have done something wrong, so wait a minute. This is what Peggy gave me.
Oh, read it again.
5346844.
Oh, 8. No, I had 744.
John.
Yeah, I had 744.
Okay, John is the winner.
Yay, John.